To his family, Menhaz Zaman was the image of the perfect son, a promising mechanical engineering student at a prestigious university, on the verge of a bright future. But this perfect son was a ghost. He didn't exist. The real Menhaz hadn't been a student for years. He was the architect of an elaborate deception, a double life built on a foundation of lies. For years he played the part, but every lie has an expiration date. His was July 28th, 2019, his supposed graduation day. With the truth set to explode, Menhaz chose not to confess, but to erase. In a final horrifying solution, he decided to silence the family he could no longer lie to, but his plan went beyond murder. He wanted an audience. In a chilling real-time broadcast of death, he turned a private Discord server into a gallery of his crimes, posting graphic images of his family, one by one. As his online friends watched, the sick jokes they were used to curdled into an undeniable, gruesome reality. How does a quiet son become the executioner of his own family? The answer lies in the very dream he was trying to protect, a dream he would ultimately drown in blood. Welcome to Beyond the Crime. Hit subscribe to support the channel, it means everything. Let's dive right in. On the surface, it was the perfect immigrant story, a story of hope, sacrifice, and the promise of a better life. It began in the late 1980s, when Menhaz and Menhaz Zaman, a young married couple from Bangladesh, decided to leave everything they knew behind. They set their sights on Canada, a land that represented a secure future, a place where their children could achieve everything they never had. The journey was a leap into the unknown. They faced a new country, a new language, and a life without the comfort of nearby family. But their belief was strong. They believed they were building a foundation of hope. They couldn't know, however, that deep within the walls of the very home they would build, a quiet, unseen darkness was taking root. A darkness that would eventually shatter their Canadian dream and turn their peaceful life into an unimaginable nightmare. This is the tragic story of the Zaman family. The couple settled in the city of Markham in the province of Ontario. Menhaz found work as a taxi driver with Beck Taxi. He was known for his hard work and integrity, often taking extra shifts to save up for their own house. His colleagues and management respected him. Menhaz managed the household. She was actively involved in local charitable efforts, preparing meals for those in need, helping neighbors, and maintaining close ties with the Muslim community in the city. In 1996, the couple welcomed their first child, a son named Menhaz. The parents pinned great hopes on him, dreaming he would become an engineer. 2 years later, the family expanded with the arrival of their daughter, Melissa. For Menhaz and Menhaz, their son and daughter became the central focus of their lives, and all efforts were dedicated to their upbringing and education. A few years after the children were born, Menhaz's mother, Firoza Begum, moved from Bangladesh to Canada. She quickly became an integral part of the family, helping raise the children, preserving traditions, and encouraging a respectful appreciation for the family's roots. The family lived in a spacious house on Castlemore Avenue in a quiet residential neighborhood of Markham. They were known as friendly, generous individuals, always ready to lend a hand. Their home was often full of guests, and holiday dinners brought together relatives and neighbors. Each family member had a distinct personality. Menhaz was restrained and disciplined, serious about his responsibilities, but also gentle with his son and daughter. Menhaz was social and caring, easily connecting with others, and skilled at resolving disagreements. Firoza kept the authority of the elder generation, raising her grandchildren with values of respect for their elders and commitment to religious traditions. Menhaz grew up quiet and introverted, preferring time at home. His parents saw him as disciplined and obedient, a child who didn't cause much trouble. Melissa, in contrast, was outgoing and social, easily making friends, which sometimes caused her parents concern. Despite their children's different personalities, Menhaz and Menhaz placed equal faith in their futures, hoping their son would become an engineer and their daughter would become a doctor. By the mid-2010s, the Zamans felt they had achieved everything they had dreamed of when they moved to Canada. No one around them could suspect that behind the facade of well-being, circumstances were brewing that would lead to one of the most shocking tragedies in the city's history. Markham is a suburb of Toronto, located in the province of Ontario. It's one of Canada's fastest-growing cities, with a consistently high standard of living and a thriving economy. The Zaman family lived in a quiet, low-rise residential neighborhood on Castlemore Avenue. The area was peaceful and well-kept, with smooth sidewalks, green lawns, and homes where neighbors looked out for one another. From a young age, Menhaz Zaman showed little interest in social interaction. He had very few friends throughout elementary and high school. After classes, he would head straight home, spending nearly all his free time on the computer. Video games became his main and eventually only consistent interest. As he got older, he increasingly immersed himself in virtual worlds, seeing them as safe spaces where he didn't have to meet anyone's expectations. He completed high school without major failures, but also without standing out. Teachers described him as quiet and unremarkable. His younger sister, Menhaz Zaman, was his complete opposite. Outgoing and cheerful, she began showing signs of independence during her teenage years. Her behavior sometimes clashed with the family's religious and cultural values, which caused tension, especially with their father. Menhaz, holding traditional views, saw some of his daughter's behavior as unacceptable. This led to family disputes. Despite these issues, Menhaz maintained a connection with her family. Beneath her independent nature, she remained close with her mother. Menhaz, known for her gentle demeanor, always tried to ease the tension and preserve peace at home. She had a talent for listening, understanding her daughter without harsh judgment. Her approach often helped calm the household after conflict. Unlike his sister, Menhaz never engaged in open disagreements. He stayed within behavioral expectations and appeared to be a compliant son. Yet behind this image was a lack of initiative, no social activity, and an absence of genuine interest in anything outside his gaming routine. He kept his thoughts to himself and never spoke about his inner world. Menhaz, despite the ups and downs of adolescence, maintained strong academic performance and eventually enrolled in university. Her achievements brought pride to her parents, affirming their belief that their efforts were worthwhile. They saw her rebellious side as just a passing phase. Menhaz, in particular, continued to support her daughter without increasing pressure. The family placed strong emphasis on education. However, differences in personality and how each sibling responded to expectations became increasingly evident. While Menhaz saw conflict as something she could work through, Menhaz withdrew further, disappearing into a digital life free from obligations, deadlines, or demands. So, in one household grew two vastly different young people, each with a unique worldview, communication style, and way of handling stress. Their paths diverged so dramatically that it would eventually play a critical role in a tragedy no one could have anticipated. After high school, Menhaz told his parents he had been accepted into the engineering program at York University. He spoke confidently about his major, claimed to attend lectures regularly, and even mentioned receiving a scholarship. His parents believed he was on the path to a successful career and proudly shared his supposed accomplishments with friends and neighbors. The reality was very different. Menhaz had spent only a couple of semesters at Seneca College in an electronics engineering program before dropping out in 2015 due to failing grades. Instead of coming clean, he chose to keep up the illusion. Every morning, Menhaz left the house carrying a backpack, giving the impression that he was heading to class. In reality, he would go to a nearby mall. This helped him maintain the appearance of a college student. There was no reason for his parents to question his story. He spent hours in the mall, either wandering around or sitting with his laptop. Sometimes he'd even visit a gym to reinforce the illusion of student life. The system he created allowed him to keep the truth hidden for years. He planned everything down to the smallest detail, from his class schedule to the supposed date of his graduation ceremony. When his parents asked about exams, he assured them everything was going according to plan. There was even talk of an upcoming graduation. He gave a specific date, July 28, 2019. By that time, his deception had been going on for years. While keeping this secret, Menhaz grew increasingly detached from reality. His days were empty. He wasn't working, studying, or making any future plans. All of his time was spent gaming and chatting online. His behavior remained calm. He didn't cause arguments, and he showed no signs of aggression. That's what made everything so misleading. His parents still saw him as the quiet son he had always been. During this time, he lived under intense pressure, from the guilt building up inside and the fear of letting his family down. On the surface, though, he appeared unchanged, silent, composed, and steady. No one suspected that behind that calm exterior was someone who had already made a decision. His main connection to the outside world became Discord, a popular online platform where users gather in communities based on shared interests. He joined a private server called Perfect World Void, named after a multiplayer online game. Over time, he became an active member there, chatting daily with players from around the world. In that virtual space, he felt more at ease than in real life, where he often felt isolated. He engaged with the group regularly, joking, talking about games, and even opening up about his thoughts. At first, he was known for his sarcastic but clever humor, including dark jokes and self-deprecation, something generally accepted in that environment. However, over time, his posts began to take a darker tone. He started expressing anger and posting offensive comments, especially toward the religion he had been raised in. His anti-faith and racially charged remarks led to a temporary ban. One of the moderators removed him from the server following complaints about toxic behavior. Later, the same moderator lifted the ban, explaining that he did so out of sympathy. Menhaz had reportedly apologized and asked for a second chance. Knowing he had no real-life friends, the moderator allowed him back. That decision kept Menhaz involved in the community, where he continued participating in conversations. Within the server, he formed a small circle of online acquaintances from countries like Canada, the US, Israel, Egypt, Romania, and Tunisia. They knew him by his username, Menhaz. Some saw him as a provocateur or troll, while others thought his behavior was eccentric but not threatening. He often made comments that sounded like jokes, even when they pushed boundaries. Gradually, he began introducing darker topics, mentioning self-harm and aggressive behavior. He talked about depression, said he had lost his faith, and identified as an atheist. But in an environment where shocking statements were common, these remarks didn't raise serious concern. In truth, Menhaz was laying the groundwork. He was observing how people reacted to his words. He was testing boundaries, seeing how far he could go before anyone would take him seriously. He spoke about death and asked hypothetical questions about how others might react if he did something awful. These conversations were framed as what-if scenarios, part of a game. No one realized at the time that he was being literal. On the morning of July 27, 2019, Menhaz Zaman posted a message on the Discord server Perfect World Void, stating that he was planning to commit a crime against his own family. The wording was blunt. He mentioned an intent to harm his parents and then turn himself in to authorities. Other members on the server responded with skepticism. Some ignored the message, while others assumed it was just another dark joke in line with his usual online persona. Menhaz remained active throughout the day. He kept chatting with several users. In the messages, he said everything had been planned in advance. He referenced July 28th as the supposed date of his college graduation and admitted he could no longer keep up the lie. He emphasized that he saw no other way out and wanted to follow through with his plan. Despite his calm tone, some users began to grow concerned. A user from Egypt tried to get a clearer understanding of the situation, asking Menhaz whether he was serious. But Menhaz stayed composed and coldly confirmed his statements. He didn't sound agitated or aggressive. His messages were emotionless and methodical. A few users discussed the situation in a private channel on the server. Opinions were divided. Some insisted this was just a crude joke, while others started to suspect it might actually be real this time. But they had no information about Menhaz beyond his screen name. No one knew his real name, address, or even the city he lived in. One user noticed that Menhaz's tone had taken on a farewell quality. He wasn't asking for sympathy or support. He was simply stating what he believed to be an inevitable conclusion to a plan he had been developing for 3 years. In an attempt to change his mind, some of his online acquaintances tried to reason with him. They encouraged him to delay any decisions and suggested talking to his parents. One person wrote, "They'll be disappointed, but they won't abandon you." When asked whether he was afraid of the consequences, Menhaz responded that he was prepared to face life in prison if he carried out his plan. He implied that, from his perspective, his actions made sense. He explained that he didn't want his parents to suffer from learning the truth about his deception. According to him, this was the main reason behind his decision. Several users began trying to uncover personal information about Menhaz. There was talk of tracing his IP address or finding other identifying details through Discord. But up until the moment he acted, he had not revealed any concrete information about his location. In public chats, he had never mentioned his city, country, or school. Throughout the day, his tone never changed. He continued chatting calmly, sometimes engaging in normal conversations, only to return to his initial claims. This switching between casual talk and shocking statements left people confused. Even those who were worried weren't sure how to react. A few users decided to wait and see if his words would turn into actions. On the afternoon of July 27, 2019, Menhaz began his attack. His mother, Mumtaz Begum, was the first victim at around 3 p.m. According to the agreed statement of facts, he struck her on the head, likely with a crowbar, and then cut her throat. She died on the spot. She was 50 years old. Immediately after that, he moved her body, cleaned up the bloodstains, changed his clothes, and sat down at the computer. A few minutes later, he logged into Discord and told the server participants that he had just killed his mother. This message caused a storm of reactions. Some took it as a joke, others asked for proof. In response, Menhaz sent a photo of his mother's body. He continued chatting in his usual manner, without emotional outbursts or panic. He explained that the time had come and that everything was going according to plan. About an hour later, his grandmother, Feroza Begum, arrived. She was 70 years old. He killed her in the same way. He also carried her body and placed it next to his mother's. On Discord, he reported, "2," and sent another photo showing both bodies. Several users began to panic seriously. They asked him to stop and asked if they could contact the police. Menhaz ignored such questions, continuing to correspond in the same tone. He commented on what was happening as if it were something ordinary. After the 2 murders, he did not try to leave or hide. He changed his clothes again, washed his hands, and then played video games and napped while waiting for his sister and father to return. He assured everyone that he felt normal and that there was no tension. One of the participants asked how he could be so calm. Menhaz replied, "I've been preparing for this for 3 years." He showed no signs of fear. He remained online for several hours. He commented on his actions and discussed details. He was waiting for his sister and father to return. Late in the evening, at around 11 p.m., his sister, Melissa, returned home from work. She was 21 years old. When she walked into the house, Menhaz attacked her. He used the same method as before. Her death was nearly instantaneous. He moved her body and placed it with the others. About an hour later, his father, Moni Ruse, returned from his job as a taxi driver. Menhaz attacked him from behind using the same weapon. Moni Ruse was 59 years old. In the chat, Menhaz explained that his father had placed the greatest hopes on him, believing his son would become an engineer. According to Menhaz, the idea of confessing the truth to his father felt especially devastating. That, he claimed, was part of the reason he decided to act before the truth could come out. Immediately after, he sent another photo to the Discord server. In Discord, he wrote a single word, "Done." Then he sent a final photo. The image confirmed that the last family member had been killed. One of the users started searching for any personal information about him. People began combing through old messages and photos, trying to trace his possible location. Only after all 4 of his relatives had been killed did he finally reveal his identity. His name was Menhaz Zaman, and he lived in Markham, Ontario. After killing his father, Menhaz sat quietly for a while. The house was completely silent. He later said he didn't yet feel a sense of finality. He calmly watched the chat. He told the group that he didn't plan to hide or run. He said he would call the authorities himself. When asked whether he had changed his mind, he replied, "No. Everything I wanted to do, I've done." He cleared his browser history and deleted some files from his computer. But by that point, the Discord members had already gathered enough information to alert emergency responders themselves. One of them wrote that he had passed the information on to the Canadian authorities. Shortly afterwards, Menhaz wrote, "Okay, then I'll just wait." He opened Discord again and wrote, "Police are here. Goodbye." A short time later, there was a knock at the door. It was the police. He opened the door without resistance. He was arrested on the spot. The bodies of 4 family members were found on the upper floor of the house. Everything matched the description in his messages. After the arrest, Discord members discussed what had happened for several more days. Most of them felt shock and guilt. Some wrote that they could have intervened earlier, others that they didn't believe what was happening. After his arrest, Menhaz was taken to the York Regional Police Station. On the way, he asked no questions, showed no fear, and offered no resistance. The officers noted his calmness. At the station, he was stripped, photographed, and placed in a separate cell. He asked for neither food nor water and made no phone calls. The interrogation began a few hours later. It was conducted by 2 investigators. When asked if he knew why he was there, Menhaz replied briefly, yes. He was warned of his right to remain silent, but he refused. Unlike most suspects, he was willing to talk without a lawyer. Menhaz described in detail what had happened. He confirmed the murder of all 4 relatives and recounted the sequence of events. He also admitted that he had planned the crime in advance, and that it was not an impulsive act. Menhaz claimed that he felt guilt, but no remorse. Investigators asked why he shared photos of the bodies on the internet. Menhaz replied that he wanted to be honest, at least with those he talked to online. He called them his only real friends. One of the officers noted in his report, he did not try to justify himself. He showed no anger or hysteria. Everything had been decided in advance. At the end of the interrogation, Menhaz signed a written confession. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. He knew that in Canada, this meant life imprisonment without parole for at least 25 years. To this, he said, okay. After Menhaz's story became public, the participants of the Discord server where he had been chatting found themselves in the spotlight. Screenshots of chats, photos, and text confessions quickly began to spread across the internet. The server he was on had been created long before the murders. It was a small community united by an interest in internet culture and gaming. No one took the communication seriously, and most of the participants had never met each other. Discord deleted the server within 24 hours of the arrest. But by that point, most of the correspondence had already been saved. Screenshots and photos began to spread on Reddit, Twitter, 4chan, and Telegram channels. Dozens of discussions, theories, and attempts to reconstruct the events appeared. Menhaz's activity on other platforms also came under scrutiny. His accounts on Steam, Reddit, Discord, and Facebook revealed signs that he had been living a double life for quite some time. One post in particular drew attention. It included the phrase, "When the truth comes out, I don't want them to suffer." Many people involved in the online discussions later said that if they had noticed that message earlier, perhaps the tragedy could have been prevented. Canadian authorities, working with Discord and other platforms, carried out digital data extractions. According to official reports, his online messages and activity became key pieces of evidence in the investigation. The internet had preserved a detailed timeline of the crime, including his motives and mental state. It became a rare case where real-world violence was documented in real time through online commentary. News of the tragedy in Markham spread quickly. Media outlets reported that 4 family members had lost their lives inside a home on Castlemore Avenue. At first, little was known about what happened, but soon the suspect's name was released. Menhaz Zaman, the son of the victims. Neighbors who heard about the incident were in disbelief. One man said, "We greeted each other every day. His mother always smiled. I can't imagine a son doing something like this." Relatives of the family, many of whom lived outside of Canada, were devastated. Close family members traveled from Bangladesh to help arrange the funerals. A farewell ceremony was held with the support of the local Muslim community. The event was quiet and private. No cameras or media were allowed. Family members requested that their grief be respected. Leaders from the community offered brief statements. The imam from the mosque the family attended said, "We are shocked. This is a tremendous loss. We pray for the souls of those we've lost." In the aftermath, neighbors and friends left flowers in front of the Zaman home. Online, people started memorial initiatives. Some suggested raising funds to support surviving relatives. But most donations ended up going to charities focused on mental health support. Police had cordoned off the property with tape as forensic investigations took place inside. A few weeks later, authorities transferred the house to the family's legal heirs. The neighborhood, once considered peaceful and secure, was now marked by a horrific event. One neighbor told reporters, "Nothing like this has ever happened here before. Now, this place will never feel the same." Was Menhaz Zaman a monster hiding in plain sight all along, or was he a deeply broken son crushed by the unbearable weight of his family's expectations? Like the video and write your comment below. See you in the next one.